Okay, so it's my pleasure to be in conversation today with Mr. Abdul Hafiz Mansour, who's the MENA representative for FATF and also Vice Chair of the Egmont Group. Why is the FATF evaluation so important for a developing region like the UAE?
Well, in fact, FATF evaluation is important to all countries. Maybe to non-FATF members, it's more so because the non-FATF members, they fall under the what we call FATF regional style bodies, the FSRBs, and they could be a bit at a distance from the FATF 38 countries who are directly involved in the standard setter and more involved in the actually as we say, the underpinnings and re-understanding the requirements. Sometimes the FSRBs are a bit away from it, and that's why maybe they fall into some kind or fall behind on certain areas. But the assessment importance is the same. It's like to an FATF country, same to any FSRB country, because the same standards apply, the same methodology apply, and finally, according to the rating, the same, if you like, fate would be faced by a country which is not rated well as a result of the assessment. So there is a difference, actually. It's only the readiness of the country could be a bit less when it comes to the FSR.
Yeah. And it's becoming increasingly important, isn't it, for countries to demonstrate that they've got a robust AML regime and the appropriate enforcement, particularly if countries want to attract inward investment and things like that.
Absolutely, absolutely, because I mean the FATF rating is a kind of a major indicator to say the international financial system, be the correspondent banks, the investors, even donor countries. And when they find certain breakdown in certain part of the system, and according to their procedures, they cannot land when say there is a country which is not compliant on terrorism financing regulations or laws. Some countries do not have the whole bouquet of legislations in place. Maybe the donors would say, you fix it first and then we'll come.
Could you let us know what does an FATF evaluation team look for when it comes to a country or a region like UAE?
Whether it is the FATF or the FSRB assessment team, because teams are assembled from different countries, not specifically from the region. And specifically now, there is an acute shortage in the assessors. It's a very tedious kind of work, and it is costly. Because when a country, like say my country, Lebanon, names an assessor, actually we're financing a good part of, say, majority part of the cost. That assessor, basically, first the time we are not being reimbursed for that. Then there is the cost of travel and whatever. Sometimes there is some compensation for a limited part of that cost, but in principle, the country is financing the assessor's cost. So that's on one hand. The other hand is the preparations for the assessors is really pretty important, training and being engaged some assessment to make an assessor really at the standard that you want. So when a team is visiting a country, whether it is within the FATF countries or the FSRBs, they're using and applying the same methodology. So there is a methodology, what needs to be done. You need to carry out certain reviews to see the compliance with the 40 recommendations. That's a technical part. And then there's the IOs, that's to measure the effectiveness, 11 IOs. And there is a methodology as how to approach each one of these assessments in each one of these IOs. The FSRBs adopted the same methodology in most of them, I would say, the same methodology that's used by FATF. So the same approach is used globally. Right. And what the assessor would do, they would be putting questions. First of all, there could be some desk work, reviewing the document, getting the legislations. On the technical side, reviewing the legislation to see their integrity and completeness. and there are some other documentation and report that was requested to be reviewed. And then there is the site visits that the team would go and on-site visit to the country, engage with the authorities, ask questions face to face, gather information, gather documents, and get to a better kind of understanding of how the regime is running. This is a pretty long operation. It runs anywhere from, say, 1.5 year, just around 1.5 year from beginning to end, and it goes through stages. And the process is pretty same. Say, one question the assessors would ask, maybe that's at the outset when they are there, is to see the national risk assessment conducted by the country. And when the national risk assessment is handed over to the team, they analyze it to see its completeness. And then when they go on site and meet with the agencies to see the degree of understanding of what they came up with, and they can go later to the agencies and to the private sector and talk to them and see if they have a compatible understanding with that of the what's said in the statement. So that's one example of what they could be doing, and this is a pretty long kind of I would say exercise, specifically at the NRA, with its cascading effects on many other recommendations and IOs.
So we've had recent evaluations, notably in Saudi Arabia and Bahrain. Looking at those evaluations, what lessons do you think for the rest of the MENA region there are?
Well, over the last 2 years, we in the region completed the assessments for 4 countries, and 2 will be discussed in the next plenary. So the assessment of Tunis, Mauritania, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia, Morocco, and Jordan. And as a general, in order not to cite specific countries, the NRA, which I just mentioned, seems to be a pretty important subject that some countries are lagging behind at this moment. So the NRA, the issue with the NRA is that countries need to conduct a kind of a analysis of the crimes, what are the risks generated by these crimes, in what areas of the country, and to what degree, in order really to pinpoint that this kind of a crime in that kind of region seems to be an alarming one. And the whole issue is that you dedicate, because you don't have endless resources, so you dedicate more resources to the areas with higher risk. So that seems to be an area of concern, because you need to conduct this kind of analysis early on, not the year of the assessment, a couple of years before, and start applying and disseminating results to the relevant authorities within the public sector, and also to the private sector, to take care of the inherent risks of the country, and the private sector integrated in their risk-based approach assessment for the products and clients and geographies they're working on. So unless you've done it early on and established some kind of a track record of implementation and certain successes, you cannot prove to have really complied fully with this one. So that, in several countries, that was one of the, lower rated areas. Another area would be on supervision. Supervision, some of the countries, the supervisory authorities were not adequately staffed, trained, and supervision on DNFBPs were not as vigilant. So on the accountants, lawyers, notaries, jewelers, real estate agents, the supervision was not that up to the standard. And in the financial sector, a very important part of enforcement of the supervision is sanctions, financial sanctions, and some of the countries have a lower, amount of the financial sanctions, which means the the supervision impact is not flowing through all the way to the end. Other areas, it could be concerning the domestic coordination in between the authorities, like when the authorities or certain agencies, law enforcement agencies are investigating a financial crime, a parallel financial investigation is not taking place. And that's a major breakdown, because AML is about financial flows. So the predicate offense, the original crime, is being taken care of to some extent, but then there is either no parallel or not at all. And this is really a pretty important point that we have seen in several areas in the region. Well, I can cite more, but then we have to go through the whole probably assessment process. But these are, to my mind, some of the more relevant areas that are seen here and there in the region.
I think that's very good. I think. Excellent. Thank you.